Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful day here in the Catskills, and I woke up very excited about Jim's presentation of a remedial process model, and it just the idea of it is exciting. And welcome to all of the people and the people from a process model group. And let's see, we don't have to introduce Jim. Everybody knows Jim, but I would like to say that Jim has so many different dimensions and parts. And Jim, I've known you in all of these different groups, and you've been such a wonderful foundational pillar of many of the groups that we've started. And um, there was something that Adler said about in therapy about how a lot of therapy is about spitting in the patient's soup, but doing it in a friendly way. And I think of you, Jim, as occasionally spitting in the soup, but doing it in a friendly way, and sort of upending something that has gotten too solidified. And I think that looking at the process, at a process model that way is very refreshing. But Katerina, you know Jim in different ways, so maybe you could say a couple of words.
Yes, Jim, so versatile. And we can ask him a question and he will bring a perspective that we never dreamed of. So today is a very special day. Over to you, Jim.
Thank you. So, who here has never heard of a process model? Raise your hand if you've never heard of it. Well, it looks like everybody's heard of it. That's a good start. Last night I was in my changes group. There still exist changes groups in case people are curious. And I brought up that I was going to be doing this today, and people got tense. Sometimes just the phrase "a process model" scares people, and so I want us all to be more relaxed.
Hmm.
That includes me. I want to be more relaxed too. So let's pause for a moment and look around, and it's just us here. Nothing to worry about. Do a little micro attunement, kind of remember who you are, because we're always forgetting, because people like me are distracting you by spitting in your soup. Just us here, okay? So for those who have never heard of a process model, but were afraid to admit it to us, the first edition was in 1997, and Katerina says she's going to send me a copy of that, because I haven't actually seen that version. And the second edition, which is what you can get online or offline, was from 2017. And who here has never tried to read a process model? Raise your hand if you've never opened it and looked at it. I can see Mary. Who else? Shashi, Dorothy, June's iPad. June probably as well as her iPad. Okay. And I'm curious why Marsha is raising her hand. Does that mean she's just saying she's never tried to read it, or she wants to ask a question? She wants to be muted and mouth the question.
The first, I don't want to, I haven't worked with it at all, with the process model.
Okay, and also, it's a process model. There are a lot of process models out there. Alistair. Can I call you Alistair? Yes, hi. You were raised-
Just to say that I've only read the first like 2 pages, maybe 3 pages, and gave up.
Yes,
And if
that's very common. People read a few pages and then they give up. You want to tell us why you gave up?
it's very difficult to grasp. Yeah, that's basically it. It's just
And that's why I decided we need a remedial class because uh, it's too difficult without knowing a lot of things that you need to know, and people don't tell you these things. So I'm going to tell you those things or some of those things. And people like Yassine, I'll need you to help me out when I get things wrong, all right?
We have Neil as well, so
Really? Where? Oh, yeah, Neil is here. Okay, that's great. Okay. Uh, so who here has finished reading a process model? Raise your hand if you've finished it. We have some finishers here. Okay, that's good because I haven't finished it. You may wonder, why am I speaking on it as someone who hasn't finished it? Because I'm more like most of you. So I can understand where you're coming from. Uh, a lot of people start and don't finish because something happens, and we can talk about what some of those things are and why that happened. Who here has read Gene's philosophy papers, or some of Gene's philosophy papers, or one of Gene's philosophy papers? Okay. Who here found reading these papers easy? Anybody?
Yeah.
Katerina has, right? Okay, good. So I'll need your help as well. In general, philosophy is hard to read. It's even hard to read by other philosophers. And a process model was really written for philosophers, but in some sense, we're all philosophers, so that means it's also written for us. And who here understands Heidegger? Just few people. You have a few Heidegger fans here. Kant, Plato.
Hey, Jim, would you sort of, this is Cassell. Will you, I don't have my video on yet. It's a little early here in Colorado. But I'm curious I'm not seeing everyone. Oh, maybe never mind. I'll put it on gallery view and then I can see everyone who raised this because I'm really curious because of resources to be able to ask people questions.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
all about asking people questions.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Anyway, one reason that people have difficulty reading philosophy in general and a process model in particular is because it's difficult to understand. And when you are confronted with something that's difficult to understand, how many people feel good when they're confronted with things that are difficult to understand? Katerina does. Neil does. That's Diana does. And Ingi has never read the process model, but means to. Well, this is only a process model. There are a lot of process models, it turns out. Process philosophy is a thing. You can Google it. You can look it up on Wikipedia. It's got a whole page about process philosophy. And so this is just a process model. And I'm going to tell you that what is. It's just one of them. And I'm just a person who's going to talk about my experiences, my difficulties, my experiences of other people's difficulties, and share this common difficulty with you so we can not feel so uncomfortable with it. Because a lot of people, they'll start it and they'll feel like something's the matter. I'm smarter than this. Why can't I understand this? And they feel bad. And you should actually feel good if there's some difficulty in understanding it, because if you understand it too easily, you're doing something wrong. I don't know what you're doing wrong, but you must be, because it's not easy to read. And maybe you were born in some other culture where you grew up, and everybody lives in a process model. Most of us have not grown up that way. So I expect there to be some difficulty. And part of the problem is life is difficult sometimes, and we need to not feel so horrible when it's difficult so that we can not feel so horrible. Who here likes feeling horrible? Anybody? Katerina, you like to feel horrible? No. Okay. Liz, you like? Yeah. Okay. Pauline, okay.
I'm Catholic.
That explains. If you're not feeling horrible, you're getting away with something, and that doesn't feel good.
No, you get indulgences,
Okay. So every once in a while, I'm going to be calling a process model APM, which are its initials. And if you hear me say APM, that's what I'm talking about. And if you go around talking about APM, people will think that you're smarter than you are. So you should start doing it too. Unless you don't want people to think you're smarter than you are, which is all right also. Okay. So who has read Two Ways to Read Philosophy? Gene's paper from 1972. Katerina nods. Okay. So I have the link here, which I could put in the chat, or Katerina could probably put it in the chat, because she's good at putting things in the chat. But the first line is a very simple, sure answer to the question, whoops, why am I not scrolling down here? Oh, that's why. A very simple and sure answer to the question, how to read a philosopher. The answer is many times. But why should repeating the same thing be any different the second time? Aren't, why shouldn't it be just the same experience over again? Katerina has put it in the chat. Why should it be different reading something many times as opposed to just once? Well, the only way it could be different is if the times are somehow not the same. We're just calling them the same. I read it, but it doesn't mean that my reading it and my reading it are the same. In fact, are any two things the same? What does it mean for two things to be the same? Here's a quote from, I think it's by Wendell Johnson, if you know who he is. It goes, a similarity is a difference that doesn't make a difference. So if you ignore the between two things, then they're the same. And sometimes we want to ignore the difference, but other times it's good to pay attention to the difference. That is often associated with a, I don't know what to call it. Let's call it a philosophy called general semantics, which was big a while back. But there's actually a Facebook group for it if you're into general semantics. But it has a lot of things in common actually with Gene's philosophy. But that's a different presentation than the one I'm doing today. So I want to start with, I started with what is now I want to say is what is a process and what is a model. And there's lots of process models, as I said. And Gene's isn't even the best well-known process model. And Gene says in the book several places that he expects others to improve upon what he's doing. So he doesn't even want you to stop with what he's written. In fact, he wants you to help improve upon it. So get to it, everybody. So and if people do it better, does that mean we'll stop reading Gene's version? Not necessarily. We can have lots of different models. Once I tell you what a model is, then you'll understand why it might be good to have more than one model. And I'm just a person. I'm not the person. Maybe Neil is the person here today. Neil, are you the person? No, maybe. He might be the person. Okay. So we did the part. So I'm telling you mainly how it is for me, and I believe that you will find this useful, perhaps mistakenly, but that's who I am. And even if your use of it is to disagree with it, that's useful too. So please raise your hand and interrupt me if I say something that you don't get or you do get differently, or if you just want to hear the sound of your own voice, which some people like to do. Also, this might be more interesting if you ask questions, and I'll feel less lonely too. So what is a process? Well, it's hard to say what a process is. It's something that goes on. It's something that happens, like digestion is a process. Breathing, like a river flowing. Life. The device that you're using to get on here today has a chip that's called a processor. And it allows your, what we now these days call apps, to go on until the processor doesn't work, and then they don't go on. Does that tell you what a process is? Maybe a little bit. Anybody else want to say what they think a process is? No?
Well, I think it leads somewhere. It has a momentum. It has a development. It has a thrust. It's not haphazardly going on.
Yes.
It's going on in a particular kind of way in order to do something.
Right. So who here believes there's such a thing as things being haphazard? We have a word for it, so it must refer to something, right? Nobody wants to say. Well, that's not haphazard. That's pretty universal. All right. So I want to start with what is a model. And I didn't. I started with what is a process. So I want to do. I did what I didn't want to do. But let's talk about what a model is. Model is about something. Model is a way we approach something else. It's a way we understand something else. It's the way we interface with something else. The hardest part to get is because a good model is invisible when you're using it. A model is a tool, you know, like a hammer for you Heidegger fans out there, that if you're using a hammer, you're not aware that it's a hammer. You're just hammering a nail. If the hammer doesn't work, then you become aware of the hammer. And a model, normally when we're using a model, we're not really paying any attention to it. So it's hard to understand what a model is because most of the time, all the models we use are invisible. We don't know that we're using a model. In fact, often we think we're in contact with whatever it is we think we're in contact with, but we're really at least partially in contact with the model that we're using when we approach it. And it's And most models, maybe all of them, are largely cognitive. There are things that you have to know to comprehend in order to use them. But the ones you use all the time, you know so well that you don't even know they're there.
Can you give us an example of a model that we use all the time that we're,
I will give you lots of examples. Uh, well, Laura raising her hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a random semi on the topic conversation, which was I just
Hazard.
yeah, I just noticed a comfort with defining a model that wasn't there for the process. Like, give me a noun and we can really talk about it with more certainty.
That's true. That in fact, when I even asked what is a model, I was using a model. I was thinking in terms of nouns, not in terms of processes. And that's the problem in that I'm speaking a language which is kind of process hostile language. And we all kind of grow up, at least in the West, with a process hostile language. So, for example, if you look out your window, which I'm doing now instead of looking at you, and you see somebody walking down the street, you say there's somebody who's walking down the street. You don't say there's a walking out there. You don't refer to things by their activity. We tend to refer to things as nouns, and that hampers us. And it also hampers us when we're trying to read a process model. In fact, it was only recently I was reading the beginning again, because often the process of reading a process model, to use the term process in a sentence, is beginning it again. And I was beginning it again, and it struck me that I was reading about processes, because it was talking about bodies and environments, and I kept thinking of them as things. And of course, it's hard to read if you think they're things, because a body and environment are very different as things. But we're here to think in terms of processes today. So, but that's haphazard digression from what I was planning to talk about. So let me talk a little bit more about models, like Zoom. Computers, when you're using Zoom, it's an interface that you usually don't pay attention to. We're talking to each other as if we're all hanging out here. But in fact, there's all this software between us that's doing all sorts of things. Hopefully, what you wanted to do, more often what the manufacturers of Zoom wanted to do. And that's fine when it works, but when it doesn't work, then it becomes obvious that there's some interface, there's something in between us that's interfering. It becomes obvious when it's interfering, not when it's working well. And as I said, models tend to be cognitive. Perhaps they have to be cognitive. There are things that you have to know to comprehend. I said that part, right? I want to quote ECM. Now, ECM, I'm doing what I shouldn't be doing, but I'm doing it intentionally to do the wrong thing. I'm referring to things by their initials because lots of people do that. They'll talk about APM and they'll talk about ECM. ECM is experience in the creation of meaning, which is what Gene wrote long before he wrote a process model. Comes out of his PhD thesis, in fact. And he says in ECM, see, now you can say ECM too, and then you can sound like you know what you're talking about. He says meaning is formed in the interaction of experience and something that functions symbolically. Feeling without symbolization is blind. Symbolization without feeling is empty. So you need your symbolization and you need your experiencing, and you need them together. And usually you have them together, but often you have them together in a mush. And sometimes you want to be able to tell them apart. Also, models tend to be parts of other models. You want your models to fit together. You want them to work and play well together. And in Western culture, they're all part of what Gene calls the unit model. The unit model is based on things, objects, and our language is mainly about things. Even talking about a process model, you're talking about a thing. It's this model, it's this thing. Some models require study in school, like physics. You go to school, you learn physics. And when you learn physics, you usually learn more than one model. In fact, I don't know how it is today, but yesterday, you took physics, you'll learn Newton's laws before you learn anything about Einstein or quantum mechanics, things like that. And in fact, people have been known to say that quantum mechanics has superseded Newton's laws. So why are you learning a model that has already been superseded? Shouldn't that be thrown out and you just use the best model that money can buy? And the answer is some models are good for some things and not so good for other things. Like quantum mechanics is not that good for moving around if you have to think about moving your body or something like that, or for reading a process model. So even a model that has been superseded, sometimes the older model turns out to be better. In fact, most people use Newtonian ways of looking at things much more than they use Einstein's way or Neil Bohr's or Neil Dunnett's way. And it's because you want to use the model that is most applicable to the situation you're in. So, for example, when you get up in the morning and the sun rises, you don't think to yourself, oh, the Earth is turning on its axis. You think the sun rose, and you look in the newspaper. The newspaper knows that. It doesn't talk about how the Earth is turning on its axis. It's talking about what time the sun rises in the morning when you look up the sunrise. So models are ways of approaching your experience of things. Neil says it's so true. Who listens to me? People listen to Neil all the time, but often they're ashamed to let him know they're listening. I mean, that's been my experience anyway. If you were listening to me, what did I just say? Because I forgot. Because
You were talking about Newtonian physics and the different models. And
right. Okay. So,
Talking about something that maybe could be called heuristic. I don't, that models need to be useful for the situation.
right. But the models are not reality. But they're the only way we can talk about reality. Because once we're talking, we're no longer doing. We're no longer what I can't say without using models to say it. Models are when you use symbolism, you're using models. And we need symbolism, as I quoted in ECM. Notice how I can toss out the letters ECM now, and you all know what I'm talking about. That we need our symbols and we need our models in order to get through a difficult day. Like today's been a difficult day. I had to clean the kitty litter box already this morning, and if I didn't, my other cat, I have two cats, my other cat would probably pee in the wrong place. So to get through a difficult day, I know I had a model. The model is that cats want clean litter boxes, and if they don't have them, they're going to, I have this understanding of how things proceed in the world, and I use these models. and we have models that contradict each other, and they're not a problem because they're used in different situations. By the way, my cat doesn't use any models. My cat doesn't have the concept of aboutness. It can't think about things. It can't use language. So you can say to me now, how do you know that? Are you a cat? Uh, uh, I have to say, no, I'm not a cat. But if I'm not a cat, how can I know that? And a better question might be, if I was a cat, how could I know it? Because who knows whether cats all are alike? And we have this category cat, and we put our cats in it. How did that come about? If you're Plato, you'd say there's this Platonic cat in the realm of ideas, and we manifest it as cat. Category. Yeah, category, exactly.
I saw a little cartoon that makes your point, Jim, and I loved it. It was this huge person pointing a finger at this cat, saying, "Don't you dare think outside of the box." So
Okay.
the model for the model for the cat was a little different than.
Well, the cat doesn't have a model, and the way I know that cats can't think about things is because I'm using a model in which cats don't think about it, and there's no way to know what cats think or don't think. We model it. We have a way of thinking about things. We have a way of understanding things, and we use these models in order to be in the world. And so if I say a cat can't think about things, you can say, well, I use a different model in which cats use language. And I can say, can I have a conversation with your cats? And I might try and do it, and maybe your cats can speak to me. And then my model turned out to not have been as good a model as yours, but so far nobody has done that for me. Anybody here have talking cats or have spoken to cats or communicated with cats?
But Jim, doesn't the cat who pees on the other corner, if the litter box is not clean, isn't the cat using a model? Say, if I want Jim to change the litter, I better pee in the other corner.
Well, this is your model of how cats think, and it's not mine. And it's also not Gene's. So that's 2 out of 3 disagree here. So we're going to go with the democracy model, and we're going to assume you're wrong about that. And again, we're always using models all the time. I just pointed out that even when there's disagreements, we reach for some kind of model to satisfy these. And cats can't do that. If they want to have a disagreement, they scratch each other or they hiss and they gesture. Yes, we'll talk about gestures later. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And I talk about models being part of other models and fitting together. If your models don't fit together, it's like being there's a democratic when one voter is dead. Can someone explain which voter is dead here?
You said to Chelsea that her model isn't valid because it's not what Jean said, and it's not what you're saying, it's not your model. But Jean is no longer with us. Therefore, how can you say that his model is valid?
Maybe he's not
Especially if Jean
but you have this
said
model
that we should build upon it.
you can't be with somebody. My model, you can die and still be with us.
Okay, but if we use that theory, then
Well,
you can't say that Chassis says is wrong, because what if it is the cat's model? Because I don't know what's in the cat's mind. You don't know what's in the cat's mind.
How do you know?
It could be that the cat's doing that.
You know, I don't know what's in the cat's mind. You have some model in which I don't know.
Well, do you have a model that you do know?
Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Well, if you're not going to tell me, then it's not a valid point, then, is it?
I'm allowed. I have a whole thing that I wrote about what I want to present, and that's not on it.
Okay, well, that's your view, but that's not a model.
Well, that's you're entitled to your view.
Okay,
Jim,
but I'm just saying you cannot say
Raise your
that
hand.
it's
If you're
you
not
cannot.
entitled to
My point is, Jim, you
Yes.
cannot say that because Janlin agrees with your point of view, that your model and his model is outweighs Shassi's what Shassi is saying. That's not fair because anybody can apply anybody's work to their own point of view if they want to.
In
That's
your
not really valid.
in my model, you can see your life.
Can I say something here?
In my model, you can say something here.
In your model. What's interesting to me is that we're enacting something about a model in which some views are valid and some views aren't,
Right.
and a model in which each person's view is expressing something that's valid in a different way. And so we're arguing about very basic models here about the model of right and wrong is so prevalent.
Right.
And for me, it's one of the things that really is holding our species back.
Yeah. Even though a long, long time ago, Rumi told us not to do that, and we still do it.
And Pauline, what will you say?
I was confused. I wasn't sure whether we're talking about the cat thinking or the cat pissing, and I got lost.
There's a TV program on Netflix that my partner loves. It's called Inside the Mind of a Cat, and that is the developing model of how cats experience.
What did Rumi say? What did Rumi say?
He said a poem about I can't remember it off the top of my head, but somebody here can or can look it up and then tell us.
Out beyond ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
There we go.
What does it mean that when we get the most emotionally charged in so many situations, it's when somebody seems to underestimate our cats? We can deal with being underestimated, but don't mess with my cat's intelligence.
Okay, so one thing I want to say about models is they're not right or wrong, true or false. They work in some situations, they don't work in other situations. They're models. And a process model is a model. Okay. And that means a lot of the things I said about models are going to apply. One of which is that it's cognitive. We have to think about things. A lot of people think that you just kind of page through the book and read it like poetry and feel things, and that's all you have to do. And those people usually don't have that big a problem with the process model. They're much happier than those of us who are actually trying to understand what the model is telling us. But we don't always need to be happier. Sometimes we need less happy, at least in my model. The point is that models aren't reality. The map is not the territory. I didn't make that up either, and neither did Rumi. A guy by the name of Korzybski made that up. And don't ask me to spell his name, but Katerina could probably spell it and put it in the chat. He wrote a book called Science and Sanity a few years ago. By a few, I mean a lot. But when you're old, it's different. A map is a model of the sort. You look at your neighborhood or wherever it is you're trying to go, and you hope that the map is telling you what you need to know. Now, let's say the map is black and white. It doesn't mean your neighborhood is black and white. That information in the model is not meant to be taken literally. That's just the way that the map is printed. Some maps, for example, like a subway map, who here doesn't know what a subway is? I mean, I'm saying that because I'm from New York and I understand that not everybody else here is. A subway map, if you look at it and try and measure distance, the distances are going to be all wrong because it's mainly about where you change trains. That's what that model is good for. And the map is not the territory, but often we confuse the map with the territory. We'll say something about what a cat thinks, and we won't know that we're using a model of what a cat thinks. And you have to use a model because otherwise, Katerina is saying Science and Sanity, an introduction to non-Aristotelian systems, and so on and so forth. So where am I? What am I saying? I need a map here to figure out where I am. Oh, the map is not the territory, which means that the model is not the thing that's modeled. The model is about what is being modeled. And aboutness is not discussed until chapter 7 of a process model, which shows you can have 6 perfectly good chapters without any aboutness. You don't even get there until chapter 7. And a bad model can make you misunderstand things. You know, if you think that a subway map is going to tell you how close you are to where you're going, you're going to be disappointed or excited if you like finding out you're wrong about things. I'm not using the model that you have to be confirmed to feel good. So I'm afraid that I have too much to say about these things. I can go on into these little details, and let me try and get back on track here. Models, yes?
Just thinking about when I think of a model, I think of these little models that kids play with, you know, and these little toy cars and trucks and things like that. And the fun of them is that you are making something. And
Yeah.
I think Jean really emphasizes that a model is something that you make. It's sort of laid out for you, and then maybe you can change it. Maybe you could add your own colors, or you could do it a different way. But the whole idea of a model, I think, is the fun of playing with it, not taking it as a law or something like that.
Well, that's your model. A lot of people like to take their models as law. And when they find out they're not law, or someone tells them they're not law, they get very uncomfortable. They feel their identity is being tampered with because people identify with their models. Their models are part of what we used to call in the old days their ego. And they're afraid of that ego loss. And then they have a feeling of loss. And then they grieve. And people don't like to grieve unless they're going to get cards from people. Laura, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I was just thinking the fun of the Lego kit or models for me is that there's the solution, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say something about Legos too. Laura, I don't know what you experienced this. I think we have sons of very similar ages, as I recall. But I remember at Lego in an older time when you kind of had an option to make a certain thing, but really they're like blocks that you play with. And the model is to be creative. And then somewhere along the line, Lego became this thing with a set of directions, and you were supposed to make this one thing following the directions. and anything that deviated, it was a new model. The model is follow exactly what's on the directions. And I didn't know if that was a reflection of a huge cultural shift or something else, but I remember that felt very sad to me. So I wanted to say something actually completely different from that, except I got, kind of distracted by the, how important Legos are. But I wanted to say, this goes into the models, but the premise is that most people here focus or something like that, have some familiarity with Gendlin's work as a psychotherapist, wrote a book called Focusing, and wanted to help us get closer to our immediate experience called felt senses. And so, speaking for myself, found out that Gendlin was a philosopher. And I thought, well, this guy who's so immediate, and you watch videos of him working as a therapist, you can't get more, a guy who is so close to the experience of the person who he's sitting with. It's almost uncanny, that talent. So then I make a mistake of thinking, oh, he wrote philosophy books. I'll just get one and read it. And you don't understand until it's too late that there are two Gendlins. Now, to Gendlin of the big brains and stuff, he understands that his psychotherapy comes directly from his philosophy. But to a regular person like me, it's a huge split. And I remember in college, I had friends who were philosophy majors, and I never took a philosophy course because I thought, I can't think like that. I don't think I'm smart enough. But I surreptitiously went to the college bookstore and bought Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. I thought, I'm going to read this by myself, and I'm going to show my friends I'm really smart. And I got up to page 1 where he talked about the difference between a priori and a posteriori. And I thought, well, no, I'm not smart enough for this book. And I just kind of hid the book and I never went back. But then years and years and years later, there was Gendlin. And I thought, finally, a regular guy who relates so beautifully. I'm going to read his philosophy. Nope. Took Lynn's course, Befindlichkeit. I still don't know what that means. And, when they throw German in, you're doomed. When they talk about Heidegger, go home, No. So just to sum up, I think that that's a big problem. The two Gendlins. And I'm a psychologist, and I thought I can read psychology. Why can't I read this? And reading philosophy is like taking calculus. You go one little phrase at a time, or it's like a proof. And it's incredibly hard unless you have a Jim and Neil kind of brain, in my opinion. So I don't know how to get beyond that. And maybe part of your thesis, Jim, is that a lot of us can't, won't, and shouldn't. Thank you.
Wow. And Susan, what will you say?
Well, I think of a model as an artistic representation of reality that hopefully reflects some truth. So more in the playful, because it hopefully reflects some truth. And if it's capturing some truth, then that truth also can be captured or reflected or felt elsewhere in other systems or other people's understanding or representation. So that comforts me. Also want to say, and this is something separate, that when I listen to this community and I haven't dared to read the process model. I haven't read it. I haven't touched it. but we do have it, things that people do to help other people understand something that's hard. And so I'm appreciating Jim, and I'm appreciating all these other people that came on to help us understand this. And also, like, when I think about, because I studied Torah and the Bible for a long time, and Talmud, and they have commentary on hard texts. And they also have a guy named Maimonides who wrote a whole separate 12-volume treatise on what the Torah was. He said, oh, you don't need to read anything else, just read my thing, because I've integrated something. And so I'm wondering, for this community, for the people who are closer to this than others, whether that might be something that someone might want to undertake, either a commentary or a retelling, so that some of this understanding can be passed on to later generations in a way that where they can stand on the shoulders of the people who, broke their teeth on trying to understand this.
Mm.
I like the mixture of breaking teeth and standing on shoulders. It's very bodily oriented, and I also like that uh, you make the making of models in art. There was a time when I wanted to write a book called Artists and Models, but it turned out to be the title of a Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis novel, so I couldn't use that. Well, actually, you can, because titles are not copyrightable, and I might write that someday.
I'm wondering if taking off on what Susan said, if there's a way that we could ask people, you first, Jim, of course, what Gene was saying in his model. What about this gap between psychotherapy and philosophy? Is there a way of saying in ordinary language what that philosophical model might mean to us as people or as therapists? And I would just be so curious about what it says to you, because Gene says that what you say is what the other person understands. So what his process model says is what we get from it.
Well, first of all, I don't agree with that. I don't think that what he says is what other people get from it, because what other people got from it was terror and stopping after the beginning. So, so there's a disagreement right there. But also, I was actually more. I read the book focusing in the 90s when everybody else did, but I didn't know Gene was a philosopher then. Until I knew he was a philosopher, I wasn't that interested in it. I got more interested in it, which is atypical for a therapist like myself. But I always thought of therapy as, people have if they could get their philosophy of life cleaned up, then maybe they wouldn't be having so much trouble. But that's usually not the practical way of doing therapy, as I found out when I went to therapy school. Anyway, I think Jadina has a hand up. Can we see you also? Maybe? Jadina?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, my computer's a little messed up, so sorry. Yeah, so I thought about something like Ulysses by James Joyce, right? You get it or you don't get it. And life goes on and it continues on. So I'm not sure this is in relationship to Jean Gendlin, but now that we are moving into the ancient future now of energy, Maybe it's just the energy in the words. Not that we shouldn't try to understand it, but there is a possibility that there is a mystery and we don't have to understand everything.
Well, you may fail your classes if you don't understand anything.
Yeah, well, it looks like they're getting rid of the educational system anyway. There
Good.
will be no classes. No, that's a whole nother subject. That's a whole nother system to talk about. But I'm just adding the possibility. Did Gendlin, I mean, at some point, at what point did Gendlin write this in the books that he wrote? Was it at the beginning or the end?
Beginning the end of the books, beginning the end of his life. I'm not following.
Beginning and the end of his writings of all his books.
Well, I said that, the first version was 1997. All right. So he wrote papers before that. He wrote papers after that. It's in the middle.
Okay. Well, anyway, I was just adding another element to figuring things out.
Thank you.
On the
Right.
subject of, can I say something?
Okay, but Rachel's raising her hand. If we use a model that the person who raises their hand goes first, then you can't. But we're going to use the model the person who blurts things out goes first. So go ahead.
Oh, no. Now I'm really uncomfortable. But in the interest of time, is there some way in between? I'm starting to feel like now I have no way in. And is there a partial way in? Like Jean wrote so many articles, and then it was a smaller unit or something to contain. And I felt like, okay, so I could read the article again if it was 20 pages or something, and I could start to have some understanding. I'm feeling like the book feels like so all-encompassing, like there isn't a way in, but if I need something way to think of, there is a way in by reading some of the articles. So I just want to feel like there's an entrance, there's a doorway that I can start to get there. And then I have to make a commitment to it. I mean, it's more complicated, but
This is something that you're using. You're likening a process model to a room with a doorway, and you want to get in the room somehow. Or maybe there are several doorways. Maybe there's a window. To use the way you are thinking about this. And one of the ways you want to get in is by reading some of Jean's philosophy papers. And I find that's a great way. That a lot of things, there's a lot of overlap between papers and a process model. And some of the papers are more self-contained. Some of the papers might be harder than reading a process model. So, and of course, I'm using the term harder and easier as if it's something we can apply to everybody in every circumstance, and it's uniform, which is not a particularly good model to use. But it's right there in our language, and I just threw it out there by mistake. So there's that too. So yes, you can. That's a way to go. And there are other ways in too. But sometimes you go in the wrong way, you might find yourself in the wrong part of the room. I'm using that same model. So keep that in mind. And who was it who brought up the Befindlichkeit?
Liz.
In German, the word Befindlichkeit means find is like find, and kite is like ness. Like it's how you find yourself. It's how you experience yourself, Befindlichkeit. And that's a way into that paper, I'm just saying, to use Dorothy's room metaphor. Okay, Rachel. Rachel, you're muted. Okay,
Rachel, we can't hear you.
He's using a model where we're supposed to read her lips.
The microphone. Rachel.
Rachel, you're muted
Rachel.
and no one can hear you.
There.
I know that I was muted, but it took me a little bit to work with I don't know what we're gonna call it, this Zoom model, whatever. So what I wanted to ask Jim, and maybe you're gonna do a part 2, 3, 4, 5 of this. I would love that. But first of all, I want to say I so appreciate you taking on this topic and talking about it in this friendly way, because it is so unapproachable and intimidating. And you're just letting us kind of sit down with it. So thank you for that. Now, I wonder, I'm feeling like I'm starting to have a preliminary understanding of a model is not necessarily the thing that it's modeling. Where my mind gets completely alphabet soup is when we talk about process, to understand the world as, my Teresa is making coffee, but the making the coffee or something is Teresa. Can you help us understand why we want to understand it in this different way instead of the unit model, which is so graspable after being indoctrinated into that? Teresa, coffee, the making of it is even thingified, even a unit in a way. But what is the benefit of thinking of things as a process? How does that help us move or change? And why do we have to do that? And how can we think that way? It makes it feel like everything is just so loose. Where do we ground ourselves?
Wonderful question.
Thank you.
So, first of all, you want to know whether it would be helpful to do that. What's the use of doing that? Why should we do this? Why shouldn't we do this? I can only tell you my answer is some people should do this and some people shouldn't do this. It's going to help some people and hinder other people, and help other people who think they're being hindered by it, and hinder other people who think they're being helped by it.
No, but if you're helped, how are you helped? That's what I think Rachel is maybe asking.
Yes.
Well, for me, I can tell you how it helps me. It helps me not so much as understanding certain details of a process model might not help me so much when I'm going to the store to buy coffee so that Teresa can make me some coffee. But what it helps me is to understand all the stuff that's between me and the world that gets in the way. And I can say that doesn't need to be there, when before I might have thought it needed to be there. That's how it helps me. But that might not be something you want to do.
Could you give an example, Jim? Like just a small example of how it helps you?
Well, let's say I was going to Rutgers and I wanted to major in psychology, and they said I have to take these courses on training rats, and they said that the psychology we teach here is scientific, and that psychology that you wanted to learn, having to do with whatever it had to do with, that's not science. If you're interested in that stuff, you should go to the literature department. And I didn't know what to say to them, but now that I've read a process model, I do.
And it would be what?
It would be that your way of modeling things as scientific or as not scientific, as if that means true and false, as if that means that there's only one model, which we're calling scientific, and that means that that's how things have to be, is not the case. There are many, many ways to model things, and you're taking one that happens to be common in academia at this particular point in the history that I'm talking about. And anyway, I had an answer for them instead of having to fail and take the course over again. And then major in something else.
Can I say something also about the, well, I'm going to say
Yes,
something. Why am I pretending to ask for
we're
permission?
using the blurting model, and that's okay.
Yeah. You know, I feel like on the one, and this is the way that I react to philosophy a lot in general. There's a paradox there, though, in philosophy that's kind of phenomenological, in the sense that, or any philosophy, on the one hand, knowing that there are models can expand your awareness. But there's another way in which, if you get into a thing where you're always thinking, but this is just a model, but that's just a model, it's almost feeding a kind of, if you'll excuse the term, schizoid orientation to life. That, you know, again, it's this paradox of phenomenology. On the one hand, it seems like, ooh, direct experience. But on the other hand, I am now knowing that this is direct experience is itself a kind of intellectualization. And it's a paradox. You're getting closer to experience, but you are too aware of that. You know what I'm saying? Of course you know what I'm saying.
I forgot what the question was, though. But
I'm just noting this paradox where you want, I think there's a need or desire for people like some people who have expressed today, and I'm one of them, you know, this book, is it going to help me get closer to experience? Is it going to help me know something and feel something differently and relieve some pain and the pain of hyper intellectualization, but itself is a kind of hyper intellectualization. That's all. I just wondered if you have a comment about that.
I do. Even though other people have their hands raised, I'm going to not call on them because I want to answer first. And in my model, I'm allowed to do that. And that is that that what you refer to hyper-intellectualization, if that's your experience of a process model, and it probably won't help you do the kinds of things that you talk about wanting to do. Again, it's how you relate to it and what it does to you. Like sometimes thinking about things just means that, like if I'm trying to play the piano and I understand you play the piano, if all the time I'm playing the piano, I'm thinking about, well, I have to change to the dominant of the dominant now, and I need to use this fingering, it's going to screw it all up. Sometimes you want to be able to think about things, like if you're analyzing the piece of music. Other times you want to have done that earlier, and now you want to get into it. So
that's true. You have to eat your spinach first, and then you can.
Well, sometimes you want to eat your spinach second. Sometimes you want to eat dessert first. At least in my model, sometimes you want to eat dessert first and second. But yes, Lynn, I'm calling on Lynn because other people have raised their hands before her, but I'm using my power as being a dictator.
Oh my goodness. So I'm being part of the dictator model.
Yeah, and you're ignoring all of this protocol here, all those nice girls compliant as fuck with our hands up. You're facilitating that, Jim. That's not fair. I get it. I was just trying to be good.
Well, I think rebellion is part of Jim's model, even though he's taking the. Yes.
Actually, it's not part of my model, but I rebel against it.
Go ahead, Lynn, and suck it up. Feel guilty.
Oh, I'm not Catholic. Well, I was just going to say that for me, the dimension of being a process rather than being an entity, it frees me. And so this is answering Rachel's question and also speaking to what Liz said. The practical uh, the practical experience for me of philosophy and of Jean's philosophy is that I get trapped in the thingifying, and I can experience in this moment like just breaking out of it when I think, oh, it's a process. And in therapy, doing therapy is such a concrete a concrete reminder of how things work. And the minute that I concretize, the person has an anxiety disorder, the person is codependent, whatever it is, then I get trapped in that when I say, oh, well, what is the process that we're experiencing together right now? What are we doing? What's happening through us? It just sets it free.
Yes, and let me say that actually what Lynn is saying is that models can get in your way, and if you toss the model out, then you're set free. However, she uses the model of tossing it out in order to do that. You know, it can't be avoided. Language is built into who we are to the extent that we can't get away from models, but you can try and arrange it so that the models aren't modeling you.
I just want to say it's not the tossing it out, but it's the movement from one to another. So if I go from the unit model to the process model, then I may have to go from the process model back to the unit model or many, many different models. But it's that being able to know that I can think outside of the box, that I can go from one box to another box, and I'm outside for that moment where I'm going from one to another, and I can pee in other parts of the house.
Yes, but then we have to clean up the pee in the other parts of the house. Yeah. So lots of people have hands raised, and I'm tired of talking, so let me call on them. Susan?
Yeah.
Susan. One of the Susans. The first Susan to unmute themselves and speak wins.
Spoken yet. Susan did not.
Have I won?
One.
You won.
Oh
Good.
boy.
Yes.
I could feel how
But I let you win.
competitive I was feeling, and with Jim calling on Lynn, and here I had my hand up, and so did Pauline. What happened to your hand, Pauline? Anyhow, that was very interesting because it made me want to. I love, Pauline, how you jousted with Lynn. And boy, I mean, I'm usually a good girl, although I blurt out. So this is great. This is terrific. I love this. And I wanted to ask does anybody remember, I believe this was at Jean's memorial down in that building on not the Lower East Side, but actually close to NYU a couple of years ago, that Donata Scholler gave something on the beginning of the process model. Was anyone there besides me? Because I had never encountered the process model, and I haven't tried to read it. But she had us read together maybe one of the first pages of the process model, very slowly. And then she had this experiment where we, I think you first used the unit model. We were supposed to be in that head and walked around and, observed and felt the walls and in that discrete unit model way. And then she had us close our eyes and walk around and feel things. And it was so different, of course. And I felt, oh, that's what he's talking about. And in terms of, the environment being more than my skin bag. And I've just never forgotten that. And maybe I didn't read any more of it because I don't want to have a dry intellectual experience where I only understand up there or I don't even understand up there. So I just wanted to tell you that. And no one was there, but I think you were there, Lynn. You must have been.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was so
I
really
was
not.
there, right?
Well, you were there too? What?
I think so. But if I'm thinking of the right thing, I had a different experience, right?
What was yours?
If it's what I'm thinking of,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to hear more about Jean, not be doing some exercise. I wanted to hear about the man, Jean, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was a different thing or part of this, but
But that's, I mean, I love it that I love that you had the experience you had. I mean, that's exactly what's wonderful is that people have different experiences. That's wonderful.
Yeah. But it's amazing. I think I'll never forget that. I'll never,
I want to say something about, Susan, what you said, in that this is an example of making experience from concepts. We often talk about making concepts from experience, but in this case, you started with concepts and you turned it into an experience. So you can go in both directions. Often models do that by taking on a model that you're unfamiliar with or one that you are familiar with. It can color your experience. It can make your experience different.
Okay. No, that's all I wanted to say.
Are there any other Susans who'd like to say anything?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll talk. Let's see. So what I started to wonder is we're all here because we're drawn to this in some way. And I see each one of us as doing that Jean thing where we're breathing and with another person. I feel like every person here does that many, many times. And I'm very interested in how they do that. And I think Lynn then, right when I started thinking about this, she sort of started to answer my question about herself, that she has like a category understanding that she then lets go of to move towards a more process or experience. And I started, maybe I didn't categorize that completely correctly, Lynn. So if I didn't, please.
No, it's fine.
Then I sort of feel like for myself, well, when I think I've studied internal family systems, for example, when I think about protector parts. They feel like models. Like this is the way I'm going to approach this world. And when I connect to exiles, it's more, can I step into that field, that roomy field, and maybe somebody else needs to help me step into that. So it's beyond something that I could even grasp at the moment because I've been grasping via these protector models. And what do I what do I do with another person, which is almost like intuition, but in a way it's somehow based on the pain that they're feeling or the struggle that they're having in some way is reflective of some reality that I might have experienced, and how can we open the larger field around that so that they feel less trapped and more connected and more joyful. And yeah, and I feel like that may be some of what we're all doing and some of what Gene's doing, and in that way I feel closer to him. And it doesn't, it feels like, oh, maybe he has something else to offer me that I could grasp, but it doesn't feel like if I don't grasp it, then I'm drowning in the water, without anything. And I don't know, that's helpful.
That's the danger, the drowning in the water danger that I wanted to help you overcome. It's nice that you use the internal family systems model, which to model my model of models with the protector as models. And that was a nice use of models that you
And I think if I'm also using, in a way, I'm using Peter Levine's model, because what I'm suggesting is that we all have this in us already, and we're already using it. So in a way, I'm placing us on that firm ground so that when we have this reference point of that positive, powerful, expressive or existent energy of ourselves, then we also can venture out to maybe explore something else that can add, but that we're not coming to this like void or empty or anything like that at all.
Well, it's hard to come to things with a void. That's language and symbolization are so built into who we are that to experience without it is something that people have to train to do. And they have a lot of difficulty meditating because they keep bringing their models in instead of just staying with their experience.
But it's more than that. It's like I don't want to push this too much, but it's like a positive acknowledgement of who we are right now or what we're doing right now.
Okay, well, I don't want to spit in your soup, but I like negative acknowledgments personally.
Yeah, okay, so that make sense why this is fun, like why you're going there. And I want to hear why the negative acknowledgement is positive for you.
But I find that the relentless push towards positivity, towards feeling good and things like that, traps us into being too nicey nice. And there's a book by Barbara, can't remember her last name, where Ehrenreich, called Bright-Sided. And too much positivity makes you bright-sided, which is the opposite of blind-sided. That by being bright-sided, you're trapped in a positive view and can't deal with negativity.
Yes, I totally agree with this. And that's not what I'm saying. It's like this balance.
I didn't say it was.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm agreeing with you.
We need to Jadina now, because she's had her hand up for a while. Jadina?
Okay, hello. Well, I was actually what Liz was saying, I thought, how many books do we need? And that was one question, because we're always looking for something, like Liz was saying, from reading this book. And I was under the impression that Gene Gendlin, doesn't he talk about that? It doesn't just come from logic and language.
Yes, he does talk about that, but a lot of people misunderstand that to think that therefore we should be throwing logic and language away.
Well, no, yeah, but now, so then I'm very interested. Right. Well, I'm very interested in where he wrote the book and why, so book ended by other books that he was clearer in expressing. So this one, not so much. So it's interesting to me why it was there in the history of his writings.
Well, when we talk about clarity, clarity is not the same for everybody. What one person finds clear, another person finds unclear. And one of the things I wanted to say is why a lot of people find a process model unclear. That was on my list and I never got to it, and we're going to run out of time soon. So let me throw that in. And that is because the models that we're using, in particular the unit model, in order to read a process model, we need to put it aside. Like Gene would always talk about putting aside whatever is going on with him so that he can be with a client when he's working with somebody. And if you read a process model, you need to put the unit model aside, not get rid of it, because you can't get rid of it. It's going to be in the language in which it's written, whether you want it in there or not. And it's very hard to put it aside. That's one of the reasons a lot of people have trouble with the process model. You wouldn't believe the number of times I read the beginning of a process model and wanted to argue with it until I realized he's not talking about things, he's talking about processes. And it's right there in the title, and yet I resisted it because it's hard to put things aside. Things are so much the way we deal with things, so to speak. So, Pauline.
Well, now you ask.
Okay. You didn't really want to say anything. You just want to.
Don't take it away from me now, Jim. I just because you I always liked the idea, the philosophy of the implicit, and I always liked the promise that implicit in the stuckness is the resolution. I didn't need anything else from Gene's philosophy than that, and that's been my experience, you know. And just an example of you had said about the subway map, and a bad model can disappoint you, and a subway map won't tell you how close you are to something. And I really got that. And a practical example of that was here in Ireland. This is around symbolism in art, and it was a bishop and an American woman had an affair, and they had a baby, and he was buried in a cathedral here in Galway, and over the last week they took his body out of that sacred place and give him back to the so that's a model that won't work for me because implied in it is unforgiveness or a lack of love or compassion. So thank you for that, because it does actually satisfy me that actually something is expanding in me, that I can drop a model altogether. So reforming Catholic is what I am. So my identity has expanded. Thank you.
That story is nice because it brings us back to bodies.
I just wanted to ask Pauline to say that first part again about the philosophy of the implicit. I just missed a couple of words.
Well, she says, point out that when you say the implicit, the language that we use, it sounds like it's something that's there. We can take a subway to the implicit.
Oh, okay.
That the implicit isn't the thing. Is when you have when something is implied, it's not sitting there waiting to come out. It's something that's freshly forming in the implying process. And the language makes it so hard to understand.
Yes, yes, yes. Get it.
I think that I agree with what you think I said, Jim. Yeah, I think I do. I think I do. But no, it's the excitement that the stuckness is implied, you know, that there's resolution in the stuckness, the philosophy of the implicit. It's the only thing that I can sort of really value. I believe, yeah. Sorry, it's only a model as well, but it works for me.
And it's a nice one. I like that model as well.
Yes.
So anybody else? I have many other things to say, but I'm not going to say them because my model is we should stop close to when we run out of time.
And we have Dorothy reading Gendlin's poem that was formatted by Jim.
Yes. Poem. Just as a gesture is not only a simple motion, but also a string of versions of the whole behavior context. So also the interaction with the direct referent is not only some inward dance, but each bit of sensing is a version of the whole life situation or the whole theoretical problem.
Beautiful. What's the name of it?
Oh, this is from Gendlin. I'm not sure where from Gendlin, Jim.
Not what to say. We want it just it as a poem.
Was that really a poem?
It is now.
Dorothy, could you read it again?
Is Katerina here to put it in the chat?
It is in the chat.
Okay, great.
Okay, once more. Poem. Just as a gesture is not only a simple motion, but also a string of versions of the whole behavior context. So also the interaction with a direct referent is not only some inward dance, but each bit of sensing is a version of the whole life situation or the whole theoretical problem. Yeah.
It tells you so much about how to do therapy, doesn't it? Thank you so much, Jim. This was delightful.
And I hope I remedied the problem people had with a process model, which doesn't mean you have to read it. It just means that you don't have to have this tension about it.
Yes, and you're helping us with that.
Thank you, Jim. That was delightful.
See you next week, everybody. Thank you again.
See you next week.
Thank you.